Good morning. Good morning. Bonjour. Je suis Karine de Meyer de Pays-Bas. I run a global women's advocacy platform called Women of the World. I try to get as many women on stage on platforms such as these, and I'm very happy to know that we have 4 women today in this session. I also raise money for female entrepreneurs in the sustainability factor all over the world. I organize female leadership trips for women, and I'm also part of the Women for Change campaign here at ChangeNOW. And I'm very happy to see so many of you here in this first session on the second day. Just wanted to have a heads up. How many people were here yesterday? Great, because that was an amazing day. And you know, we started with a beautiful conversation between Santiago and Mathieu Ricard, and it was very much about how we should all work towards a caring economy and homo economics they were talking about, and then Kate Raworth talking about how companies need to have a purpose. It's not only about earning money, but it's also about doing good. And if you're able to get all of the people that work for you on that same mission, then I think you're really doing a great job. We also heard from Alexandra Palt about the living wage and how you can actually transform your supply chain. So I think yesterday was an incredible day. In this session, we're going to be talking about efficiency of energy. And it will actually highlight for you how to ensure accessible renovation and which actors, from institutions to innovators to citizens, are leading the way. Energetic efficiency is a crucial step in optimizing and reducing our energy use. Renovating homes and office buildings can drastically reduce global energy consumption, but must also be met with measures to avoid a rebound effect. Increased efficiency, of course, can lower greenhouse gas emissions and other pollutants, as well as decrease water use. Improving energy efficiency can lower individual utility bills, create jobs, and help stabilize electricity prices and volatility. France, as you all know, has set the target of reducing its energy consumption by 20% and its greenhouse gas emissions by 37% by 2030. France also has stringent building codes and mandatory energy usage reports for the residential and commercial sectors. There's also an ambition retrofit program, and the country is working to renovate 500,000 dwellings per year. France is also working to reduce its transportation emissions by 29% by 2028, investing in efficient vehicles and rail development. Did you actually know that Japan at this moment is the top-ranking country in industrial energy efficiency? And this has actually been achieved by combining regulations, voluntary efficiency programs, and financial incentives. But France, UK, Italy, the Netherlands, Spain are actually also in the top 10. So I really think Europe is leading the way when it comes to energy transition. And I'm super proud to be actually from Europe and from the Netherlands. So this session is divided in 3 parts. We're going to start with a fireside chat. And I'm going to be inviting our first speaker, Sagnik Bhattacharjee, CTO and co-founder of ECOTEN, to come onto stage. Great. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You told me just backstage that you are a little bit bubbly and that you tend to talk a lot.
Yes. I'm hoping to control that.
Okay, well, we have 17 minutes, and apparently the clock is already ticking.
Super.
So, what do you want the audience to remember about?
Apart from that, I said that I talk a lot. Well, I want to talk about what we do for energy efficiency and the kind of projects that we're currently doing and what it could lead to in the future and what that means for the world. So I think I would like to talk about that, definitely. I hope, if any takeaway, that's this.
Well, when I did a little bit of research on you, apparently you conceptualized the measurement of urban heat vulnerability index, which is actually mentioned in the European Handbook for SDG Voluntary Local Reviews in 2020. So are there other things that you have done or that you have achieved or that are really unique to the way that you think when you, because I know you're very much specialized in urban heat. And I mean, as you also said, you know, right now we have 4.4 million inhabitants living in a city, but by 2050, you have actually counted that maybe 7 out of 10 people might be living in cities. So how do you see the future for the cities?
Well, cities are important because they're not only where people, most of the people are going to be living, but they're also the hive of socioeconomic activities and also cultural activities. So as cities grow, so does the requirement for the implementation of smart infrastructure in there, so that we can live in cities in comfortable, efficient way and improve productivity, and that's good for the global economy in general. In order to do that, a lot of design, like urban design related things, need to adapt to the new generation. Right now, I mean, I consider it as the age of smart cities, where you have all kinds of smart applications which are designed to make the quality of life in cities much better, and it's only going to get better and better and better in the upcoming years. So hopefully we'll have, what I would like to see is cities having the potential to provide very high quality of life for the future populations of the world, and that's good for the world economy as well.
And what are examples for you of a good quality of life in the city?
Well, there's two elements. One is the outdoor side, and one is the indoor side. So, outdoor, if you like, you know, having a lot of blue-green infrastructure, because as I deal with extreme heat, this is a serious challenge that all cities in the world are facing, especially now more than ever. Developing resiliency to all impacts of climate change through nature-based solution is something that we, in my field of work, promote a lot, and it works. That's the outdoor side. So as outdoor environments develop, so does social cohesion, and it just makes city life very good, very nice. And indoors is where, like, humans have built buildings and are continuing to build buildings to provide an environment where it can control a little bit of the immediate climate. Like we are here, we're, you know, air conditioned and everything, we're good. And that also will improve due to the development of something that we work with called smart buildings, where all, like, tech is kind of helping humans to have a very good life inside the buildings as well, through all the appliances and everything. And of course, good high energy efficiency is important for that as well, because you don't want to waste enough energy, and you certainly don't want to release as much carbon and, you know, carbon dioxide and everything in the atmosphere and perpetuate climate change. So that's a combination, like indoor-outdoor comfort together, good urban lifestyle. That's what I would say.
You were educated in France, I saw, in Nantes?
Yes, I studied my master's in central Nantes. Yeah.
But you're living in Czech Republic right now.
Yeah, in Prague.
And what's the reason for that move?
Well, actually, it was, you know, in France you have this opportunity to do your last semester as an internship or a master's thesis. So I was looking for a place to basically continue on with my work, because I studied urban environment, the science of urban environment, and I wanted to work in that field as well. And it was actually a little difficult to find the right place. Most of them are research, but this is a startup. I'm like, okay, that's an interesting journey. I didn't quite see that it was in Prague at the time when I applied, but then I did. And I'm like, okay, so I'm moving out to another country, and that's always exciting. So I went there, and it was fantastic. I'm still there, like, you know. So hopefully, we'll be there to continue.
Wonderful. Are you able to tell us a little bit more about ECOTEN, the company that you co-founded? Because it's an urban environmental consultant. Maybe tell us a little bit about the kind of clients that you have. And I also saw that you won some prizes with ECOTEN. So yeah, tell us a little bit more about that.
So there are actually two ECOTENs. One is the ECOTEN Urban Comfort, which is, again, dealing with outdoor comfort. We specialize in using satellite data as well as simulation results to improve the quality of life and increase resiliency to extreme heat in the outdoor urban environment. So basically build comfortable urban environments. And the other company, which is what we call ECOTEN Smart Energy Solutions, where we focus on the indoor, where we are working on developing smart buildings through smart ventilation, smart building materials, um, uh, artificial intelligence being used for like HVAC, effective HVAC, utilities, greenery, etc. So like that's focused on building the building side. So we do both of them, and yeah, we usually work with city planners, city municipalities, as well as in the private sector, architects, civil engineers, basically anybody who's working with making buildings in urban areas. We work with them and we consult them. Yeah.
I also read that you are very much specialized in the use of nature-based solutions to mitigate the impact of climate change. Can you maybe give a couple of examples of that?
Well, what we do is we have a software that allows us to predict how different nature-based solution, what I call the blue-green infrastructure, behaves and which one performs better than the other. And this is important because we can't just put trees, because trees are like the main instrument for cooling, bringing down temperature through nature-based solution. We can't just put trees everywhere, because if you do that, first of all, they're expensive. They need maintenance, and it takes a while for a tree to grow. So you have to be economic on that. And so what we do is we use our software to predict that this place, if you put the trees here, it's better than putting trees in some other place. So therefore, you're basically it's a decision-making tool that helps city planners and urban designers to identify which parts of the cities they should put all the blue-green infrastructure. So trees, parks, green roofs, green walls, water bodies like small water bodies, fountains, humidifiers, all of this, how to put them in the right way to maximize the cooling impact, basically.
Okay. So you're basically saying that the mission of the company also is that you have a data-driven approach. Do you feel that there's still a lot of ignorance about within cities and city planners about, and that you're also able to educate people?
Well, we're trying to do that now because we are currently in a Horizon project where we are trying to revalue or reevaluate how to implement data-driven approaches for problems like climate change. And I think that this is, from the development of data side, like we're right now, we have so much data and they could be used very much. But it seems like when it comes to implementing these data, we often sometimes lack the knowledge of how to effectively use this data to improve the quality of life, and also to basically go further as well. Like what more data do we need to make life better for cities as well as for buildings? So yeah, in general, like it's an ongoing process, and we are. I think that we will be able to properly use them, but it requires some steps to go forward. But we'll get there. Yeah,
okay.
I sincerely believe that.
So one of the talking points you mentioned is that you want to talk about smart buildings and renovating existing buildings. What is the project that you're most proud of, or which was most innovative?
Well, it's hard to pick on one.
Oh, you can.
Well, I will start. I want to share about the smart building project that we made. In Prague, we renovated a building. It's actually a high school, and we have changed it's a very old building, and we have put in a lot of smart technologies to help the building to become carbon positive and energy positive. So it generates energy, and it is able to, like on an annual basis, it's able to produce energy and give it back to the grid. So that's definitely a very good thing, because there's a lot of, through the use of solar energy and everything. And what that does is that not only does it generate energy, but it can also sell energy back to the grid. So thanks to the help of machines and digital tools and everything, the building will actually know when the price of the energy is high and it's the best time to sell it. The building will sell it on the right time. So that's good for the life cycle as well as the economy of the building. Beyond that, as schools, we know that there are going to be classes, there are going to be lectures, and then the times of those lectures, we put that data into the mainframe, and then now all the classrooms which are going to have classes at a certain time, they will the HVAC system is set up so that it will like make the comfort level very good for that specific room, simply for just that class. And then all the others, well, all the other non-used rooms will become dormant. So in other words, every aspect of energy efficiency that a building can have, we managed to do it. So that's for us, like, really, it's a proud moment for us. And this started this year, so now also the building is predicting how the energy will, like how much energy will be used for the next following days based on weather predictions and stuff. So it kind of behaves according to the weather as well. So this is definitely one of our proudest moments, and I think I'll speak on behalf of our CEO. He's like, it's his baby, you could say. So, so yeah, I mean, this is definitely one of our proud projects. Beyond that, we've also, from the urban comfort side, we've done several projects for urban development in Prague as well as in other places. We've developed several maps using satellite images to help identify vulnerable spots in the cities. So far, 3 governments, 3 city municipalities, Vienna, Prague, and Helsinki, and we're hoping to work for more with the heat vulnerability. That's very exciting because space is always exciting, and bringing data from space is personally exciting for me as well. So, yeah.
What I love to hear is that you are talking about the human factor, because I mean, you know, people often forget, but it's not only about the building, it's also how the people interact with the building. I mean, coming from the Netherlands, I'm certain you've probably heard of the Edge. They created the most sustainable building, I think, almost worldwide.
Yeah,
like Koen van Oostrom, and I remember every time when I come there, you know, I enter a room and the light turns on, and the moment I leave, and it, you know, it's like all these ways of thinking, use of lots of glass, you know, which is good for your mental state, you know, to have light and everything.
Yeah, I think the Edge is like inspirational building in terms of smart building. So I think it's quite an example to bring for this. Hopefully more buildings will pop up from like the Edge.
Yeah, exactly. So you want to create more human-centric energy activities for buildings?
So yeah, I think like usually when we go and talk to people about sustainability and also energy efficiency, we often pop up words like carbon footprint and lower emissions and all that, and that's all fine. But I think it's important to not put too much over focus on the technical side. Rather, keep in mind that all of these, the buildings and all this smart energy and carbon footprint, it's for the humans who are living there as users of the buildings who need to benefit. So that, I think, sometimes gets left out a little bit because we're very proud of the technical advancements that we make, and we sometimes forget about the human side. So when it comes to buildings and all the appliances that you put, it's very important to take into account that every human has some requirements, and the building should answer to the requirements of the humans. Not everybody, some people like hot, some people like cold. It should be variable, and the utility of the building should also be flexible, so that it can accommodate whichever humans will use that building for whatever purpose. So designs, policies as well, but building design, the HVAC, the civil engineering, environmental engineering side should keep that in mind when they're building at least new buildings or refurbishing existing buildings as well. So I think that's a message. That's a message I would like to show as well to here.
Oh, the screen is off. So what are the plans with ECOTEN? I mean, what's the future?
Well, so right now we are calling ourselves Urban Environment Consultancy. I sincerely believe that we are, as I mentioned earlier, we are at the age of smart cities and smart technologies. So I want to work more towards using these technological advancements to figure out a way to improve the quality of life in cities in whichever way. So we're already using 2. There are many more that are coming up. I would like to support that. And I always say for ECOTEN, we want to be the science and technology. Well, so right now we are the science behind the policies that governments take. We want to be the science and technology behind what the governments and the policies that the governments make. So yeah, that's our idea. And also we want to kind of go into the artificial intelligence. That's definitely something that's coming up. Everybody here knows that, I guess. So that would be our way forward, at least for now, and hopefully we'll get there.
And now, from my diversity and inclusion point of view, how many women do you have working in the company?
We have right now, I think more than, we have a small team. So
how many people are you?
We are around 7 people, and out of which 4 are women. So
well done.
Yeah,
that's right.
We're expanding, and we're hoping for more to come. So yeah, we're very open, and we have also a very international team. Everybody is from some or the other place and stuff. So we have a very exciting time with each other, and we learn a lot actually from each other, from work and personal as well. So we love that diversity.
Well, we have 1 minute, 30 minutes left, 30 seconds left. Anything you want the audience to remember about you?
I hope that we will, as I mentioned earlier, I hope that we will build more comfortable urban areas as well as buildings, and hopefully more and more people will love being in cities, because cities are really wonderful places to be. And provided that they work very efficiently, all the different elements of the cities should work very well. So I hope that we can support that, and that's what I want people to remember. Like, cities are fantastic. We want to support it. That's it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for taking the time with all of us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Before I am going to invite my 3 next guests onto stage, I am supposed to share something with you, because there's an illustration which is supposed to be shown, but I don't. Yes, here it is. And this is an illustration of Fanny Didou, and she's a graphic facilitator. And after each session, she will be capturing the conversations live, and at the end, she will have made a beautiful illustration. So if you want to take a picture of it. So then I want to invite 3 panelists. Benoit Bazin, Chief Executive Officer of Saint-Gobain. Sanne de Wit, she's also from the Netherlands, Head of Ideas for Energiesprong. I'm supposed to sit there, so you can sit next to me. Yeah, that one. And Caroline Conroy, current mayor of Dublin. No, I'm supposed to sit here. They're very strict. If you want some water, please help yourself. Welcome. You're the token man in this session. That's interesting. So you've been the CEO of Saint-Gobain for 2 years, I think now, understood? Yeah. And when I was reading through your biography, but also through the mission of the company, it very much connected me to what I was listening to yesterday with Kate Raworth about purpose, because you are very much about, you have 168,000 people that you lead, and you very much feel that you have a collective purpose, because you really want people to feel that you want to make the world a better home. For the ones who don't know, but Saint-Gobain is a worldwide leader in light and sustainable construction. You were French educated, but also at MIT. And you also worked for the Ministry of Finance and Economy for many years, understood? Way back. But you've been with the company since '99. So, Sanne, I'm going to introduce you briefly as well. You are from the Netherlands. You are Head of Ideas for Energiesprong. You were educated in the Netherlands. But we just had a little discussion in the Speakers Lounge, and you have also recently been working in Germany, and you're also at the moment spreading your wings, and for the last 5 years have been doing a lot in the United States, correct? Yeah. And then Caroline, welcome, Mayor of Dublin, and representing the Green Party, dressed in green as well. And from what I read in your bio, you're very much focused on connecting with the youth, that you want to feel that the youth feels represented by you. Well, welcome as well. So, Benoit, I want to start with you. So construction is at the convergence of all contemporary issues, of course, energy, climate, and social. And there's a lot of social, issues with that actually linked to construction as well. What is something that's very dear to your heart and that you feel is also could be a threat to this? And I mean, because I can see it also in the Netherlands right now, we have an enormous shortage of housing. On one hand, we have the war with Ukraine, which has a huge impact on our government. We're building houses now for Ukraine refugees, but the Dutch people actually have a very hard time because they cannot find. So, I mean, what are things that you see that you are worried about or that you feel that you can, with Saint-Gobain, really make a huge impact or really maybe change the public discourse as well?
Well, thank you. I think it's first to realize that construction, in the overall sense, is the solution for the climate change. You could say it's the problem because they make construction and buildings 40% of the greenhouse gases, 40% of the solid waste. So that's on the negative from the past. But there are technical solutions which are very good for sustainability. So for me, it's very important to convince that we need to accelerate both for new construction and for renovation. New construction, you could move towards light construction, where you reduce by more than 50% the weight of materials. You move to circular economy, materials that you can recycle. I take glasswood insulation. In Canada, we recycle 85% of the materials. So there are new ways of construction where you can build faster, better, for either the emerging markets, where you have 2 billion population in the next decades, or even in Western Europe, where indeed we lack of the offer in terms of housing. And same on renovation. So right now, we see a bit of a crisis overall in terms of housing, to have decent homes, not only far away in poor countries, but also in Europe. In France, we have 2.3 million of people on the waiting list for social housing. So we need all that. So it's both convincing that construction is the solution in terms of delivering drop of CO2 emissions. You can reduce by 5 times the energy spent in a home after good renovation. And second, to convince to what we just heard about the social utility, the well-being of housing, both for private and also public buildings. You take hospitals, you take schools, you take private buildings. It means a lot for the people. It means a lot for the well-being in terms of thermal comfort, in terms of air quality, in terms of visual light. And I think we have to step up in terms of resources, in terms of speed, in terms of means to accelerate on how construction can be a solution to the crisis of climate, energy, and social.
Fantastic, yeah. And do you feel that we have the right resources in the world today?
I think we have the right resources in terms of technical solutions. However, we still have a lot of challenges. First, the awareness, being aware that sustainable construction exists, and we have launched Saint-Gobain, an observatory to gather feedback around 10 countries in the world of what it means for students, for contractors, for architects. So awareness is very significant. Second, training of resources, attracting contractors on new ways of construction. And third, I think we don't have the right resources in terms of financing, whether it's public support or private. If you take in Europe, the private sector on the financing doesn't care about whether I finance your home, which is good or not. I finance you because you have a good job, you are in good health conditions, so you will pay down your debt, but I'm not caring about whether I finance you to move from an F and G energy performance, in France, if I take the grading, to A or B. So I think we need to accelerate and increase the resources that we put all together. I take the example of France. We just had which is good. I take the positive side, a program for school renovation in the next 5 years. It's 2 billion euros for the next 5 years. We advocate it should be 8 billion per year, because 2 billion euros in terms of 10,000 schools means 40,000 euros per school per year. It's not enough to have a full global renovation of a school. So yes, the resources exist, but I think we need to step up and multiply by 4 to 5 times in terms of financing needs, plus awareness, plus training, But we have a fantastic mission to make the world a better home, so I'm optimistic. And the technical solutions in terms of innovation, I'm sure we'll talk about that with Energiesprong, the technical and innovation solutions exist. We have made some world premiere of zero carbon manufacturing of flat glass, of plasterboard. We just launched a new first worldwide premiere of plasterboard manufacturing with zero carbon in Norway. So the solutions of low carbon materials, low carbon construction, light construction do exist.
And I always have a feeling, I was seeing that here too, but I mean, America is such an energy slum. I mean, I lived there for many years myself. I mean, I sometimes don't understand that the public doesn't realize that, you know, having your air conditioning on, you know, in the middle of the winter time is going to make people sick. And it's costing a lot of energy. Sanne, I think it might be interesting for you to go on to this discussion as well, because you are approaching it from the inside. So can you maybe tell us a little bit more about Energiesprong and what your company does?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With Energiesprong, we focus on existing buildings mainly because we think that's the most difficult, because the most of the buildings have already been built and we need to do something with that to transform them into buildings that no longer use fossil fuels. And we want to do it in a way that it's also affordable, which makes it extra difficult. So what we do is we try to transform a building by adding an external facade to the building with installation, with adding a new roof with solar panels and new installation. So it's 3 big components that need to be developed, and we say in factories because we need to scale. So the idea is that you basically scan a building, then that information goes into a factory, and then within 10 days you renovate a whole block. And we focus on social housing organizations because they have a lot of similar housing stock, so it's easier to develop a product for a building that you can, that you can do it like 10,000 times. And so that's why we work with social housing organizations, because we can create that initial market so that it becomes more attractive for big companies like Saint-Gobain to set up factories, maybe to try to develop these solutions. And the social aspect is that we wanted, because social housing, at least in the Netherlands, I think overall in Europe, those buildings are the worst buildings, like they have the highest energy bills, but the people with the lowest income live there. So what we want to do is the people that stay in the building keep paying the same amount as they did before the renovation. So normally you pay like €100 on your energy bill, and you pay that to your utility company. Now the tenant pays that €100 to the housing organization. So with that, the housing organization generates a new income stream, which over 30 years, combined with the maintenance budget, should pay for the retrofit. But therefore, these prices have to come down, and therefore we organize these big volume deals over Europe, where we work together with construction companies, with social housing organizations, with regulators, and with financial institutions to make this work, because everybody has to say sort of yes at the same time, and then you can move a market. So that's more or less our approach, and we are an independent market development team, so we are in between all of these players trying to make that happen, basically.
Amazing. Can you maybe also talk a little bit about the material transition and the social transition, because we were talking about that backstage.
Yeah, because we started Energiesprong, and I have to be honest, we were really focused on reducing energy in buildings and not so much on material use. But this was 15 years ago. I don't know if that's that makes it right. But we now started a new program where we work together with farmers. So because in the Netherlands we have a big problem, and I was looking for the word in English, but maybe you can help me.
Yeah.
Stikstof?
Carbon dioxide.
The?
Carbon dioxide.
Yeah,
monoxide.
Exactly. So farmers have to change the way of working. So we thought we need a solution for farmers and we need a solution for builders. So we started looking into materials that we can use for insulation and that they can start growing. So we now have a big program that between farmers, construction, and housing organizations, where farmers are now growing insulation for construction, and this is like the next big program that we're launching. I think it's very interesting. And the social transition you said?
Yeah.
Ah,
Social transition.
Then there is a social transition that we also focus on. So we work on the energy transition, material transition, and social transition, because I've been working in construction for 10 years now, 15 years, I think. And I think we can say that we've developed a lot of new innovations, technologies, and stuff like this, but often the companies that have to work with it are not really ready for change so much, because the construction sector basically traditionally is very inward looking, not so open, like driven on short-term profit, and is not so diverse. It's pretty hierarchical. So we need to change that to more open organizations with more diversity, with more like servant leadership, and looking at long-term values. So this is another thing that we are trying really hard to change, which is not so easy. So if people here have ideas, you can always come to me. We can see if we can make that work. But this is like the main three things that we think are important in this energy transition.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Caroline. So you are part of the Green Party, representing the Green Party as Mayor of Dublin, and you are delivering for the climate and the communities and equality. And your party, of course, believes that you must push the climate action to the heart of everything at governments. And your priorities are that you really want to give the young people the voice and rebuilding biodiversity within the capital. Are there any state levels, or I mean, is there like any levels of funding that which is made available to households to help them retrofit their homes, for example? Because that's something that Sanne is very special.
In the city of Dublin, anyway, I'm the mayor of the Dublin City Council, so I represent the citizens of my city, and we have a retrofit program for all our tenants, so people who rent from the council. A lot of the housing stock is older, and since 2013 we've been retrofitting our homes, and out of our housing stock we've probably retrofitted 79% of them to date. Now the first phase was a lower retrofit program. It was insulation of the attics, the pipes, the tanks. It was pumping the cavity bricks, because our housing was built with cavity blocks, and ventilation in our roofs and walls. That's changed now since 2020, and we've gone on to phase 2, where we add now windows and doors and heat pump system as well. So that's actually brought up the BER rating to probably a B2 at this stage. So the hope is to go back to the very first lot of housing that we retrofit, to upgrade them to a higher standard. And in that, the benefits for the homeowner is the reduced energy bills. And we've probably saved in around 74 million euros in energy bills for our tenants due to that retrofit program.
Okay. And do you make the decision for those retrofit programs based on geographic areas, or is it more individual, like economies of scale?
Yeah, it's more the economies of scale, trying to do blocks of estates at the one time, because it makes sense to have all the construction in the one area, and you're not moving stuff around, and it's better for climate not to be chasing up and down the roads. So we try to do it that way, but then that can cause a bit of, oh, why aren't we being done? We're over here, But so we try to do it in blocks, and then move to another side so they can see it being done. The hardest part, I suppose, on the retrofit program would be our apartments or the flats, because they're a lot bigger, and not necessarily everybody is a tenant of Dublin City Council, and that can happen in the housing stock as well, that you may have homeowners in between who are private owners. So we're looking at that. We're trying to see, is there a way of overcoming that, because the economy of scales is reduced when you have to, stop and start from a housing estate block. But at national level, we have, because the Green Party are in government, the grant system has been increased hugely. And we also put in a one-stop shop where people who want to insulate their home or retrofit it can go to the one-stop shop, and they will project manage the whole change in their home. And it's another barrier being reduced for them to do that. And the more we can get people to take on board doing it themselves, if they have the means to do it, the better for the country and for the environment.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. So Benoit, I want to go back to you because when I was reading, preparing, I was reading about the Marshall Plan for renovation. And, you know, I mean, I sometimes think, is sustainable renovation, is it for everyone or is it for the happy few? That's a question that I actually have to you. And I would like for you to share with us about the Marshall Plan for renovation.
Well, what I mean by Marshall Plan is to have an investment mindset. 10 years, exactly what you just mentioned. You cannot do it 1 year after the other, drop, stop and go all the time. So it's at least a 10 years vision, and I'm happy that the Prime Minister in France, she said, you know, we have to drop by 50% the CO2 emissions in buildings for the next 8 years. So first, a vision of 10 years, because we need stability, visibility in the overall public support framework environment for all those actions. Second, I think it's very important to dedicate the efforts where it's needed, both for CO2 emissions. If you take the F and G grading of housing in France, they make roughly 20% of the dwellings, but 80% of the emissions. And second, it's more the low-income households. So they have problems to pay the bill or to buy food. That's what we face in France today. So it's obvious that we should dedicate the public support towards the low-income households where there is also problem of energy efficiency and CO2 emissions. So that's the second parameter. And the third, which is a great example from Dublin, that you cannot do just one step. It's multiple steps to have a global renovation performance. You know, it's not just the roof, it's not just the door or the windows, and you have to have this plan for 5 steps to have a global efficient renovation. So that's what I call a Marshall Plan, and basically taking in France the 5 million of energy slums we have, passoires thermiques, as we call it in French, and take 500 of them every year, so that in 10 years from now, we are done with those F and G places. And second, if we don't do it, based on the new regulation in France, they will go outside. They will go out of the rent market. And we already lack enough housing in France. If you put the F and G out of the rent market because they don't meet the minimum threshold, you increase the problem of housing in France. So when you do all this together, it makes sense to do it in the right order with this vision of 10 years investment, at least, if not 2050, because we have to reach carbon neutrality by 2050.
Okay. And the question that I asked before that about sustainable renovation, because in the Netherlands, I sometimes feel it's for the happy few. How do you see that?
No, actually, in France, a lot has been done for social housing by the Caisse des Dépôts. So it's a public type of financing. So it's more on this action of social housing that we make progress. Why? Because this large pocket of housing, they have the ability to make the return on investment and to dedicate efforts with a long-term vision. For private individuals, it's sometimes a bit more difficult to convince one by one. You have in large cities the condominium. What are the rules? Is it unanimity? Is it majority? And how we get moving on condominium to make sure that the overall building has an effort on energy efficiency. And I think finally, in a lot of countries, the mayors have a big role to play because it will make their city more attractive if it's with good air quality. We heard that about urban well-being. So I think the mayors have to take a stance to say, I take all this area and I try to have a bit of massive renovation to make it more efficient, to lower the cost. So I think the mayor have also a big drive and a big say in terms of tackling a full area of their city.
And are you active in Ireland?
Yeah, we are active. We are very happy to be active in Ireland. And a lot of the actions that you mentioned, I hope it's coming from Saint-Gobain product, but we are extremely happy to be also with Energiesprong. We started years ago on this envelope of insulation and glass. So yes, there is a lot which is very fascinating and optimistic. There is a lot of innovation, there is a lot of drive within the construction sector. So I think we need to accelerate, but clearly it's moving. We need to step up with teams, with competencies, with a big public framework and investment mindset, but I think it's moving in the right direction. We need to accelerate.
Wonderful, okay. So Sanne, I think a last question for you, because we have 3 more minutes. You said you're focusing on a social transition, and you really want to make companies ready for innovation change. How do you do that?
Yeah, good question. Because the way we look at social changes, at least the way we look at it in our program now, is that it has like 3 levels basically. So it is me, I need to change something, or I need to feel maybe empowered to speak up or to make mistakes or to fail sometimes and not feel like it was a failure. And then there is the second, that is me and the others. How do I work together? How do we work together? And then it is me and nature, because sometimes we forgot that we are also part of nature. And I think we're now thinking about initiating projects where we look at the decision layers of companies, and we want to change those decision layers, so make them more diverse, but also have people from different backgrounds in schooling or in a different age. And on every one of those topics, we want to change 25% of how it is now, because at like 25% is the social tipping point, and with 25% of change, you can start changing a system. So that's the project that we're now initiating, which is very exciting, I think.
Yeah, exciting. Caroline, I think the last question for you. So are there also publicly owned community buildings included in your schemes, and do you have any examples of that? Community halls or?
Yeah, we have a number of programs going on. The National Sustainable Energy Programme offers grants to community buildings as well, and the local area, if say a number of houses wanted to get together, they can actually hire a mentor to help them set up a sustainable energy community, which will include their local buildings as well. We've also seen now our bigger churches in the country are either being used for something else and retrofitted and downsized to a smaller church, or in some cases the building was really not even worth renovating. They've knocked them in Finglas, in one area that I am in, and they've actually built a smaller church and then used the land for public housing. And then the schools used to have to apply for planning permission for solar panels. We've changed that now so they don't have that time lag or cost involved in going for planning permission, and they can put in solar panels. And again, they get grants to do that as well, because it makes sense to reduce the energy costs for the school, which impacts national government bills as well. And it means in the summertime, when the school's not being used, they're feeding back into the grid as well. So it's a win-win.
You have to move to Dublin.
Yeah. Well, we have reached our time limit. I want to thank all 3 of you very much. And wonderful to hear that you're all connected. I think that's how we're going to change the world for the better. Thank you. Anyone want to take a picture of that? Yes. So that brings us to our final guest, all the way from South Africa, Marlene Badenhorst, and she's South African, and she founded SlideLuvre. Nice to meet you. Yes. You can sit on the yellow chair.
Shall we start? Let me do that. Okay.
Welcome.
Oh, thank you.
So when I was reading through your bio and in preparation, I very much liked what you said, that energy efficiency is seen as the first fuel, but is often the last resort.
Yes.
Would you like to elaborate on that?
Yes, I think in the world that I'm living in, well, first a bit of background about myself. A couple of years ago, I was actually a shareholder in an office building. And I realized that there's, you know, this disconnect really between building owners and tenants. The tenant is actually bearing the brunt of high energy prices because much of the cost is actually a pass-through cost to the tenant. So that actually got me thinking about, you know, what role does a tenant play in creating a more energy efficient environment, you know, building environment. So if you look at the energy policies in the world, it is very much a question of carrot and stick. And the most successful energy policies is actually where they implemented a progressive, stricter policy regime so that the buildings can actually get more energy efficient. So using the stick really. Because in a lot of places, it is still the carrot approach. And what I certainly see from my perspective, it's you know, as long as energy efficiency is an elective, you know, you're not really getting the benefit. So that is really what we need to achieve, is to get to that point where, especially for existing buildings, and as Sanne said earlier as well, where you have more of a stick approach and say, you need to save as you know, so many energy by this point. Otherwise, we will never get there. So that is really what we need to achieve.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit more about SlideLuvre?
Oh, yes. SlideLuvre, I started SlideLuvre in 2015, and we have developed a product called Smart Voltaic Louvers, which is basically a combination of solar panels and solar shading. It's also a smart system. It's sun tracks, and the net result of our product is that you generate solar energy and save energy at the same time. So really addressing energy efficiency from the demand side as well as the supply side.
Okay, all right. So is there another way to measure energy efficiency in commercial buildings?
Well, traditionally, you know, the approach that's used for measuring energy efficiency is what they call M&V, or measurement and verification. It's a very thorough process, but it's also very time-consuming and very expensive. Where we are at the moment is that if you look at you know, all the new data analysis tools and things like machine learning, those kinds of tools can be used to very good effect in M&V. And it also speeds up the process of doing M&V because a lot of those, you know, you can save a lot on manpower, really, if you employ those tools in the traditional M&V process. And I think the other very important benefit of that is that you are actually getting a better model at the end of the day, because the normal M&V process creates a static data set, whereas when you look at data analytics and machine learning, that's more of a dynamic type of model that you create, and that can give you repeatability and extra. It can also be extrapolated to other buildings. So I think it's much more flexible, and I think that's really what we're lacking for existing buildings. And if you look at compare new buildings with existing buildings, in a new building, it is fairly easy because nowadays they create digital twins, from the start. In existing buildings, not so easy, and that needs to be created. But I was qualified in data analytics a long time ago, but I think that's really the beauty of using, the new tools in it, so that you can actually get that benefit also for existing buildings.
Okay, yeah, no, because that was actually going to be my next question. Are you using AI already in your efficiency programs? Because I think that is the next step.
Yeah. AI, not so much where we are at the moment. I think what we would focus on is machine learning, because when we start working with new clients, when retrofitting for our product onto a building, the first question is, okay, so what is the baseline now? We need to create a baseline now for so that we know what benefit our product can bring to you. And I've been working with the National University of Singapore. They have developed a tool that you can actually use to a good effect in doing that. So there's various tools available that you can do this with. But I think for the moment we will employ that method. Go with machine learning and see how it goes. I'm not too sure whether AI can play a role at the moment, but we'll probably get there in a while.
Okay. So you have a systems approach to energy efficiency.
Yes.
Would you like to elaborate on that a little bit?
If you look at energy efficiency implementations or retrofits that was done in the last couple of years, the typical product that was used was LEDs. Replace all the lighting in the building with LEDs. And that's an example of a widget as opposed to a systems approach. So if you then look at the systems approach, that is typically a solution rather than a component or a widget. And that would typically give you the Berkeley lab has actually done quite a lot of work on this. And they reckon that you can get a 50% or more saving with a system approach as opposed to going with a widget approach.
Okay, interesting. So where do you see SlideLuvre in 10 years' time?
Well, our mission, when I started the company, my mission is to actually assist building owners globally in achieving net zero emissions for their buildings. Currently, we are in South Africa. We have also established a company now in Singapore. Our first major client is in Singapore, and I think from there we will leapfrog to other continents as well. So hopefully in 10 years' time, SlideLuvre is a household word over the world.
Okay, because I mean, when I heard the name SlideLuvre, coming from the Netherlands, Louvre French, slide,
yes,
I thought of sliding doors. So how do you see stakeholders, including policymakers, industry professionals, building owners, collaborate to promote and prioritize energy efficiency as a fundamental aspect of sustainability building design and operation?
Yeah, I'm not really involved in the policy making environment, but I think they need to involve tenants in their policy making environment. So that we can bring in the human side into that, as the previous panel has also alluded to. Because currently it's very much focused on the structure itself and not so much taking into account, the whole living organism that the building really is.
But you are based in South Africa?
Yes, I am.
What's the impact of the weather?
Well, in South Africa, and I think same here in Europe, during summertime we can already feel the effects of climate change, the effect of heat coming into the building. And we are, and once again, that's why I started, with the development of my product, is to see to what extent, we can use that to actually use as a shading system, so that you can basically alleviate the effect of increased temperatures during summertime in buildings. South Africa, as you know, is very much on the same latitude than some places in Europe. So I think it's basically the same type of climate in summertime that we need to face, and that we need to find a solution for. So just to give you an example, so what we have done for a national building in Cape Town, that was an independent energy study that was done. We took a 4-story building for this simulation, and we've put our product on the northern facade, eastern facade, and the western facade of the building. In Europe's case, obviously, it will be on the southern facade. So the outcome of that energy study was that we could generate 47% of the energy needs for that building with our solar panels on our product. And we also had a 42% saving in energy efficiency, which is made up of reduction in the cooling energy, as well as an integration into the lighting system using smart lighting. So in total, 68% carbon emission saving. That was basically the end result of it.
And do you see this copying this in other cities? I mean, this is something that you
Yes, very much so. Currently, our focus is on Singapore. We are going to do a pilot in Singapore in October of this year. In that case, our product will be used like an awning on a commercial building, and so used in a slightly different manner, because Singapore is on the equator. What is valid here is not valid there, as far as in terms of orientation of the product and so forth. So yes, that is what we're focusing on at the moment, and then after that, our product will go through certification. The solar panel side of it. And we plan to launch the product then early in 2024.
Okay. Globally?
Globally, yes.
Okay, so you'll be mostly working with some of the
people in the audience, if they want to work with us.
Follow SlideLuvre. So what are the main barriers or challenges for you to implement this?
At the moment, actually, policy and regulatory rules around buildings, and for instance in Singapore we need to get approval from the Building and Construction Authority before we can deploy it on the buildings. So that is really the barriers that we need to overcome, the regulatory and also the certification.
And this is actually a last question, but what are emerging technologies that you are seeing and that might be able to work for you, for your solutions?
I think, like Sagnik is mentioned before in the previous session, in my view, there will always be widgets, solutions that address a singular, saving, let's say LED light. But the way forward is really looking at integrated solutions where you can address more than one aspect of energy efficiency saving in a building.
Okay, fantastic. Anything else you would like to share with the audience?
Well, I would like you all to visit us at our stand and to come and talk to us about your specific problem that you're facing. SlideLuvre is a very versatile product. It can be implemented vertically or horizontally. in various configurations. So come and talk to me, and we will take it from there.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I think we can all look into the future with lots of positivity, because there are people out there, such as the ones that you heard from today, who are safeguarding a healthy living future in cities. They are taking our personal needs, our well-being at heart. They're open to new emerging technologies. I am personally fascinated by AI and deep learning, and it was wonderful to hear about that in the last conversation. I hope you enjoyed this session, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning when I'm opening the third day morning session as well. Thank you. Oh, die is leuk deze. Nice.
Oh, look.